Welcome to Redefining Medicine, an intimate and personalized program that illustrates a different side of the practice of medicine. Our in-depth conversations will focus on mentors and motivators who are consistently reshaping, redefining, and rediscovering the field of medical health care. I would like to welcome Dr. Patrick Vitter Jr., a board-certified dermatologist specializing in non-surgical treatments to improve skin health and delay aging. He is regarded as the pioneer of pulse light technology for the use of skin rejuvenation and is the developer of the acclaimed photofacial. He is the founder of Advanced Aesthetic Dermatology and practices in California. Good morning, Dr. Vitter. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Good morning, Monica. Thank you for inviting me.
It's our pleasure and honor. So let's go back to the time when you were a young boy and when you were just beginning thinking about what you might want to be when you grow up. Did you always know you wanted to be a physician?
No. My father is a physician and a dermatologist. So my early experience was largely, around the house seeing hundreds of little sample bottles of shampoos and skincare products and moisturizers. And his dermatology journals, which always seemed to feature graphic skin diseases that looked dreaded on the front covers. So that was early on. And when I was 10 and prone to misbehaving and bothering my 7 or 8 younger siblings that I had, I ended up having to spend time in my father's office. So in his office, I got a sense of really a bit of what he did. But as far as wanting to go into medicine, that really was a decision that evolved when I went to college.
So was there a strong interest in science?
Well, I loved science. In particular, I loved biology. And what I loved about biology was understanding the world and understanding, in particular, the body and how it worked. But that combined with really what was my most compelling intrigue and fascination, and that was people. I just found people really interesting. From a young age. And I always wanted to get an idea and understand why somebody looked the way they did or behaved the way they did. And that was just that combination of that love and interest in science and biology in particular, and just being fascinated by people. It was clear that medicine made the most sense for me.
And you were fortunate enough to go to a not-so-shabby school on the West Coast called Stanford?
So, my undergraduate career was at University of California at Santa Cruz. Very interesting. That was in the 70s, and the environment there had a real mixture of people that were super bright in high school but didn't really fit in. And so the UC Santa Cruz was kind of a really good environment for them. Other people you might classify as fruitcakes because the campus was in a redwood forest. And then we had a lot of Vietnam veterans. So they were anywhere from 5 to 10 years older. And they had spent time in Vietnam, and now they were in the mid-70s going back to school. And so my classes were full of these kind of people. Plus, because UC Santa Cruz was a fairly new undergraduate campus in the UC system, and when I started there, it had only been the 8th or 9th year it had drawn a lot of faculty that were near retirement who decided that Santa Cruz and being in a redwood forest would be a great place to finish their academic careers. So we were blessed by really very seasoned, top-notch faculty. So that was my undergraduate experience. And I went from there to medical school at Stanford, which was a very fruitful environment for creativity and ideas. Happened to be, at that time, 78 to 82. And those years, Silicon Valley was just blooming and blossoming. We still had a lot of people that were alive in World War I, which was tremendously fascinating for me, and talking to them. And that actually became one of the key motivations to go into the specialty that I chose, which was dermatology. I loved fine details. I loved what was fascinating about dermatology was the dermatology professors I had were like they could instantly recognize something, whereas all of their other non-dermatology physician colleagues could be world famous in their specialty area, but were totally clueless when it came to looking at the skin and knowing what it was. And we would do a consult in the hospital on a Dr. Shumway patient, and he was clueless what the rash was. And we'd walk in, and the faculty in an instant knew what it was. And I just thought, I want to be like that. It was like learning a foreign language like Greek, dermatology was. It was like you recognized what the skin was telling you was going on. And then I loved the fact that dermatology allowed for a lot of procedures, but everything we did was on our patients who were awake. And I found the operating room to not be an environment that I was comfortable with, largely because the patient was out. You never were talking to the patient. So your conversations were with the anesthesiologist or the nurse about your latest vacation or your new home or your new sports car or the fancy restaurant you went to. As a medical student, I didn't have money to do any of those things, or their mistress. And there was no conversation about the patient we were working on. And I just found the people that came and that I had the opportunity to see fascinating. And from 1978 to 1982, World War I veterans were in their late 70s. And you'd be talking to somebody who was on the Western Front in 1918, and as you were taking a skin cancer off their nose. I loved that. And then I loved being able to leave a result that the world didn't see. It was like, oh, you saw Dr. Vitter and he took a skin cancer off your nose? Where? And that was really how I gravitated to my specialty area of dermatology.
What did your father say when you told him that you were going to be a dermatologist and follow in his footsteps?
Well, my father was a very interesting man, exceedingly bright, one of the smartest people I have ever met. But I think there's a bit of an element of competitiveness that he's always had his entire life. So I know deep inside that my father was probably just thrilled that one of his 11 children chose. So, very prolific man in many ways, with ideas as well as children. But I know that deep inside my father was thrilled that his second oldest child and his oldest son, chose to follow in his footsteps. And I would say that I saw mainly in my father the lifestyle he had in dermatology. I had a lot of interest when I was in medical school, cardiology, because I was interested in really preventive medicine. I wanted to keep people healthy. I wanted to help people become healthy. And yet when I saw what a cardiologist's lifestyle was, at 6 o'clock in the morning they were in the hospital, 10 o'clock at night they were in the hospital, and pediatricians who would be there late at night missing their own children's events while they were taking care of children they didn't even know. And I thought, exercise to me was also really important. And I saw that the lifestyle in dermatology allowed me really to have a balance in my life that was going to be really important to me being happy.
Well, your father was certainly home a lot.
Yes. And he took good advantage of that, too.
Yes, he did. That's great. So let's talk a little bit about that healthy lifestyle that you live. So I understand that you are a triathlete and an Ironman. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I started as a competitive swimmer. When we moved to California in the mid-'60s, and the swim team to be on was Santa Clara Swim Club, it was really producing many of the Olympic swimmers. So my father imagined that one of his children was going to be in the Olympics, and I wasn't blessed with the physicalness of going to become an Olympic champion as far as a swimmer. I probably should have gone into gymnastics or been a jockey instead. But I had a ton of determination and a lot of energy, and I was willing to really, really try really hard. So I became a decent swimmer, but I was never going to become a champion. But those years of swimming, and in particular swimming requires you to have a lot of time in your mind. It's not like a team sport on a court where you're conversing with people and having conversations. You're basically looking at a black line on the bottom of the pool and counting laps. And that taught me focus and discipline in things that really were positive. It also, I gained this appreciation for how good it felt to push yourself and how good it felt to be physically fit. So when I retired from competitive swimming, when I was a senior in high school and stopped competitive swimming, I was left with no athletic event or no regular athletics that I did. And so I didn't feel good. And I began to continue to swim. I liked to run, and I liked bicycling. And triathlon didn't exist at that time, but within a matter of a few years, when I was in medical school, this event, which now has become the world famous Hawaiian Ironman Triathlon, but at that time it was just called the Triathlon, not the Ironman. And that event was happening in Hawaii. They had three of these Ironman distance events, and in Hawaii, it's the only place on earth that it had it. And my father was a long distance runner. I kept doing athletics. I was in medical school at Stanford, and he heard about this event and said, "Let's go do it." So we were in 1981, when I was still a medical student. My father and I were the first father and son to finish an Ironman distance triathlon. We didn't finish together. I finished, and here's my competitiveness coming out. I think I finished about 3.5 hours ahead of him. but
you can say that again if you want.
And I fell in love, but we both did finish, and I fell in love with just what a triathlon was. And so since then, since that original Ironman triathlon, which now was 36 years ago, I've done well over 100 triathlons, one other Ironman triathlon, but the others have been shorter. And discovered that where I was never going to be a international or world, renowned swimmer, being a very good swimmer and a very good runner and a very good bicyclist meant you did really, really well in triathlons. So I won a lot of triathlons, and at my peak, I won the national championship in sprint distance triathlon for seniors, masters. It was in 1997. So that was kind of the culmination of my triathlon career, and I've kept doing that. As just something that, I shouldn't say just something, that is just an integral part of my life. And that love and passion for athletics and that recognizing the need to have that part of your life attended to has really been a key part of what has brought me into the area of regenerative and functional medicine and the interest in anti-aging medicine, and has helped really sharpen my concepts of aging as I have aged, in that, I believe that feeling your best and looking your best is really about balance. It's about balancing everything in your life. And that makes so much sense to me, because what I've learned in medicine and what I learned in biology and physiology about the body and about nature in general, but specifically about the human body, is that our bodies are designed to keep things in such a tight balance. We keep the right blood pressure, the right body temperature, the right blood sugar, the right amount of sodium and potassium, and our bodies are designed and work really hard to keep all of those in balance. And when they're out of balance, you don't feel well. So that nature is telling us that to be optimally healthy, to feel your best, and to look your best, it's really about balance, regardless of what age you are. And balancing in your life your athletics and your what you engage your life with, your downtime, your recreational part, your love life. It's all about balance. And each of us are the ones to be entrusted with deciding what is the right amount of balance to have me feel my best. And as we age, sometimes that balance requires balancing our hormones and the right supplements and the right diet and the right nutrition. Sleep obviously is key. And I think that our sex lives, our love lives, is a key part of balance. So when we, on a daily basis, pay attention to what we need to be in optimal balance, that to me equates with really optimal wellness and optimal health. That's not taught to doctors in medical school. That's unfortunately and sadly, that's not taught in our residencies. Our focus there is disease. And the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine so appealed to me because it wasn't about disease. It was about bringing health and wellness to our patients. And the first place you have to start is with yourself. And that's my personal philosophy.
And how did you first come to hear of A4M?
I'd always had an interest in wellness. Back in high school when I read Adele Davis cookbooks back in the early 70s, and I loved cooking, and I thought about, these emerging concepts of nutrition, some of which have been proven to really be of value, and some of which have been dispelled, some of the notions that in the 70s that were being put in print. But that was my first really introduction into thinking about nutrition and how key it was to health. In 2005, somewhere around 10 years ago, I saw a course advertised in Paris. That was a bioidentical hormone course, 5-day course. So my father and I traveled to Paris together, attended this course with Thierry Hertog and Claude Dahl, and it was like, this is what I had been waiting to hear. Physicians in a variety of different specialties who were open-minded and had this and shared this like-mindedness about wellness, that what we as physicians were learning wasn't about health and wellness. Giving people drugs isn't what makes people healthy and well. It was really lifestyle medicine. And I was so in awe of the knowledge that these physicians had gained already and what they were bringing. And when I returned from that, I was so inspired that I discovered the A4M. And I have attended since then almost regularly the A4M and have just been immensely enriched by the expertise and the knowledge that has been shared by the many, many faculty that have participated and lectured at A4M. There's just such a wealth of material there, and the ranks that have been just growing of the numbers of physicians who are sharing this interest in really wanting to bring wellness to their patients and to the world. And the knowledge and the information has just expanded tremendously. Those concepts are, and the discoveries and the knowledge are beginning to filter now into more mainstream medicine. The pharmaceutical industry is threatened by that because if everyone's well, we're not taking their drugs, and that would be a bit of a threat. But regardless and despite that, the courage of the early pioneers to stand up in the face of what was, by their colleagues put down and criticized and called voodoo medicine. And I've seen some of that, that's beginning to fall by the wayside as those same critics are passing away from, or succumbing to, diseases from their poor lifestyle. And you're seeing really our faculty and our role models, people leading lives based on what they believe in and what they're teaching and sharing with their own patients, and that is inspiring. So I have found a home in the A4M, And I've been privileged and honored to be invited to be a faculty to share my areas of expertise and my passion, which really have been linked to this interest in anti-aging medicine and what I've discovered in what we can do with light for skin. And when you think about that, light it's so natural, just like eating a natural diet. So my interest in wanting to help people have better looking skin and wanting to help people feel better has largely shaped the kind of practice I have today.
And how did you first begin your investigations with light? How did that come to be?
Well, like most things in medicine and in science, it's a combination of three things. It's part serendipity, part just luck, and it's part keen observation, and it's part passion. I really had a passion for wanting to help people. And as a dermatologist, the common things we saw were bad acne, rosacea, red faces, red necks, red chests,
we'll have our
sun-damaged skin. So those were the really common things that we saw. And what in my early years in dermatology, from mid-'80s, we had really, for some of those very common conditions that were very embarrassing to people, we had very little to offer. Rosacea, for example, red faces and flushing. Pharmaceuticals are limited in what they do for that, very, very limited. And then it was just telling people what things to avoid. And so we had really no good options. And I wanted to be able to offer somebody more than just telling them all the things they had to avoid and giving them some drug that was limited in what it was going to do. So the serendipity part of my journey for discovering the benefits of what light is able to do for people's skin was that my father had one of the very first IPL, or intense pulse light devices, in the world. And my father, one of his gifts is that he is a pioneer, and he is a person that has a great mind and a brilliant mind, and he gravitated to new things. So IPL was new, and he gravitated to IPL and was willing to spend the kind of money, at that time a ridiculous amount of money, it seemed $180,000 for a device that made a flash of light once every 9 seconds. And we were trying to make it, we and the other dozen people that had IPL in the world were trying to make it work like a laser. Lasers were powerful. We thought of them as powerful tools because we could kind of point and shoot and make things go away. And we were trying to make that work with IPL. So my father's office manager in the office I was practicing with my father said, why don't you just learn how to use the Photoderm device, the IPL device, and you share in the lease payments on it. So I learned some of the early techniques of flashing light on spots from my father. We hosted a number of luminaries for the company that would treat our patients, and all kind of did the same thing. It was sort of just treating some spots. And to me, treating spots is not, I'm not a spot doctor, I'm a skin doctor. And making spots go away wasn't earth-shaking, and to me was not impressive. If I made 4 brown spots go away in somebody's face, the world never noticed that. It made more sense to use this technology in the early days on the entire face, not just part of the face. And when I did that, that was a eureka moment. That was where patients came back and told me 2 things that I never heard when I was just making spots go away. The first thing they said was, Dr. Bitter, everybody's commenting on how good I look. And it wasn't that they came back and said, wow, Dr. Bitter, people are saying I look 10 years younger because you made that brown spot go away. You never heard that. When you treated the face, the entire face, people noticed and the world noticed. And what they noticed was not that spots were gone or capillaries were gone or even that the redness was reduced. What they noticed was that the quality of the skin reflected more light. And that reflecting more light is what young people's skin looks like. So when I took people no matter what age and I did this process, everybody got that effect. The second thing they came back and they told me, which you never got when I just treated spots on people and made spots go away, they came back and they said, I have 4 friends who want to come in for the same treatment. those two things were really, that observation and that passion for wanting to help people feel better about their skin, and the serendipity of just having a device and having access to it really led to that discovery that I called the photofacial procedure, and that now it was 20 years ago. 20 years later, there are at least 30 different companies making IPL devices around the world. There are tens of thousands of people with IPL devices.
Did you happen to bring one with you? I'm just hoping.
Someday we'll have it in a pocket and be able to do that. So in Las Vegas,
okay, good.
My dear, we will most likely get to demonstrate. But what I've discovered, and what others have discovered based on the early work that I've done, and that original study that I had published, showing that we could rejuvenate skin non-invasively without downtime with light. That was 17 years ago. And in the last 17 years, we've really discovered that light does much more to skin than lessening redness and making spots go away. But it actually makes skin healthier, and it makes skin cells, aged skin cells, behave like younger skin cells, so that skin ages more slowly. So I know, on top of all of that, I am very vain, and I care very much about how I look. So I admit, and I admit to audiences when I lecture that I'm very vain. And part of what has also motivated me was my own vanity. And so I, over the last 20 years, have probably done at least 80 IPL treatments on my face. And I know what 62-year-old grandpas look like.
You're 62.
I'm 62, and I'm a grandfather. So, and I know what they look like. I can go to my high school reunion and see what people my age look like. So I know what people my age look like. And I don't want to look like 62-year-old grandfathers that I know. So part of really what I do, and I share, it's not a secret, is using light. And light makes skin not only look better, it keeps skin young, it keeps skin healthy, and it slows down the way we age. So now we know a lot about light. And light becomes integral to kind of an anti-aging program, if you will, a part of the piece of that puzzle, not the pie, the piece of the pie of balancing hormones and the right nutrition and sleeping well and having harmony in your love life. It's the things that we can also do. And the A4M has really appreciated how key that is for their members to be exposed to really the latest in techniques in aesthetic medicine, and the most experienced faculty in their different areas in aesthetics. And they've brought that with the aesthetic modules to all members.
So when you were first discovering all of the different modalities, whether it's aesthetics or hormones or what have you, that A4M were teaching, and when you first started 10 years ago, did you implement anything else into your practice other than the aesthetic part of it? I know as a dermatologist, okay. You're often, everybody wants to just look younger. Mm-hmm. They don't say, I want to feel better. Mm-hmm. So what did you implement at that time, if anything?
That's a very insightful and key question for me, because I had started really in medicine with an interest in preventive medicine. And when I was a medical student, I was involved with the Stanford Heart Disease Prevention Program, and our focus there was really lifestyle intervention. What we knew in the 1970s was what we thought: cholesterol reduction, so take all the cholesterol out of your diet, all the fat out of your diet, and salt restriction. And so that was the focus there. I thought that's what I wanted to do. But then I really discovered that we were kind of really more limited, and I either had to be a cardiologist to do that, and that was really not going to fit with my lifestyle. Plus, my experience when I did my 1-month cardiology rotation was everybody seemed to die. All my patients seemed to die, and that isn't a great for a medical student who's 22, 23 years of age. That doesn't leave a very positive impression. So I knew I wasn't cut out to be a cardiologist, but I'd always had an interest really in lifestyle and nutrition. And for me, discovering what I could do with light, and as a dermatologist, of course, people come to see you for skin-related issues. But you know, what really motivates people to come to see the dermatologist is three things. There's three reasons why they come to see a dermatologist, and I discovered this early. And as a dermatologist, if you really discover that early, then it made the rest of what you did much more, I think, empowering and impactful for the patient, because you knew why they came to see you. One was they came to see you because they were afraid. They were afraid they had something bad, and they thought, well, you know what? I got this black spot on my arm. A friend of mine noticed it the other day, and they said, wow, I had a friend who had one of those, and they went to see the dermatologist. They were dead 6 months later. So now you can imagine what kind of powerful impact that has on somebody. And they come to see the dermatologist, and you walk in, and you're wearing a white coat, and you're like this God. You're going to pronounce to them, that black spot, oh, that's bad. You're going to die in 6 months. Or I can remove it, and you're cured, and you're going to live. So that's one of the reasons that people come to see us. The second reason people came to see us is because they were uncomfortable. They had a rash that itched, you know, whether it was eczema or so, and we could help them. And that was easy. That's easy to make people not itchy in 1 or 2 or 3 days. And the third reason they come to see dermatologists is they're embarrassed. They have something that's embarrassing. Those are the only 3 reasons people come to see a dermatologist. And they're embarrassed because they've got acne on their face, they have a red face, they have brown spots on their hand, they have psoriasis, they have vitiligo. A lot of the skin conditions are not life-threatening at all, but they're embarrassing to people. And I appreciated that. People are always coming to see a dermatologist for aesthetic reasons. So aesthetics became something that I loved doing. I loved being able to make people feel better about how they looked. And my interest in health and nutrition, which got so fueled by my experience, my involvement with A4M, it made so much sense to at least bring some of what I was learning at the annual meetings for the A4M about wellness medicine to my dermatology practice, my aesthetic practice. And so I began to learn more about bioidentical hormones and introduced that, about nutritional supplements, and recommended that for my patients, and topical products that I found with bioactive ingredients and vitamins and minerals that had benefit for people. And commonly patients would come in and say, you know, Dr. Vitter, what do you do? You know, I mean, your skin looks nice and you look fit. And
you're 62 and you look 20 years younger.
Well, thank you. I came here for that. I wanted to hear that from a beautiful, lovely young woman to here I look 20 years younger than I really am. So thank you for that. So for me, it made sense. And I wanted to share that. I wanted, you know, I can't tell people to go and do triathlons. I mean, I could tell them, but, you know, that wasn't really the key. The key was really balance. And part of that balance is the rest of what we do in our life, not just what I do for people's skin.
Have you ever been confronted with any criticism for the outside of the box thinking that you have injected, for lack of a better word, into your practice?
Well, I think that with the wellness-based wellness medicine concept that I've largely learned from my involvement with the A4M, the answer is really no there, because I'm not in the realm of dealing with endocrinologists and primary care physicians. And so that my realm there is my patients, and they so welcome advice, especially when it's what you live and practice yourself.
They trust you.
And when they look and they say, you know, you're fit, you look good, you've got a lot of energy, you still run and do triathlons, you don't look like the 62-year-old grandpas that we know. You know, that credibility comes. And so with respect to those concepts, no. With respect to some of the things that I've done in dermatology, yes. But, you know, that I didn't expect. I didn't anticipate sometimes their narrow-mindedness. And I think that when the established order, the old guard, gets rattled a bit, some people's reaction to that is feeling threatened, and they'll come out and make criticisms based really on ignorance and a narrow-mindedness. But notwithstanding all that, to me, that doesn't matter, because really what matters to me at the end of the day is, well, what is the person that I've done a treatment for telling me? And when somebody comes in, and when people are coming in, my day is full of people coming in saying, I love what you did for me. I love it because I look better. I look younger. I feel better. I think for the physicians that have been involved with the A4M and have taken full advantage of the different modules that have been offered and training, that's what they experience with their patients, saying, you've made me feel better, thank you. I help people feel better about how they look, and that's what I love. At the end of the day, that's what helps me sleep really well. That's what motivates me and inspires me. I love what I do. I'd be a happy camper if all I did was flashlight on people's faces. And I've done that 20 million times. 20 million flashes of light I've watched. And I'd be a happy camper doing that for the next 15 years of my life, making people's skin look nice and learning how to do it better and better and better. But the fact that in the 20 or 30 minutes I'm working on somebody, I get to talk to them about nutrition. I get to talk to them about the wellness medicine concepts that I've learned through the A4M. That just adds to it. And it enriches the experience for the patient.
You are a mentor to so many newer physicians that have been practicing for many, many years with all of your inventions and everything else that you've been a pioneer in. Is there anybody today at 62 years old that you still seek mentorship from?
Oh, well. So at the age that I am, well, yes. First, anybody older than I am, because they have more life experience. And I think that it's important for us always to listen to the age of wisdom. And people in their 70s and 80s have a lot of life experience, and they have 10 to 20 years more life experience than I have. And so, yes, I look at that age group partly for the life lessons that they've gleaned and hopefully openly share. And then you also look at that age group for the mistakes that they've made, lifestyle mistakes. And you look and you see a bent over, hunched 80-year-old with one foot from the grave, and then you see somebody like my father who's 86 and still walking an hour a day and a really sharp mind. And you realize what the choices we've made in our lifestyle, how it catches up with us at the end of our life. So that's one group. I have a great deal of respect and learn from those people in my specialty area who I know truly are passionate about what they do and truly do the work in their own clinics and their own offices, and then so willingly share their techniques and the things that they've learned from observation. So I find mentorship in that. And then I am always inspired when I see people in my age group who have a lot of energy and a lot of vibrancy and vitality in their life. And you look at them and they are a fabulous role model. When I was much, much younger, I thought my grandfather was, 58 when I was born. So I remember him when he was in his 60s and his 70s, and he lived to be 102. And, I always thought of him as an old man. And now that I've reached that grandfather age, I realize that being, in your 60s doesn't mean you're an old person. Part of that is how you think of yourself, and part of it is how you've lived your life. And yes, I can't run as fast at 62 as I could when I was 50. I could run a 5-minute mile at 50, and I can't run a 5-minute mile at 60, but I don't expect to. But to get up every day and have the energy to be able to do things that I love, and to still be able to do things for people in my practice, and to have the energy to keep up with my 5 children and my 2 grandsons.
You're going for your father's record? Or
I value that, and so I also appreciate that the things I've been learning through the A4M become even more important as you get older, that you have that balance in your life.
How beautiful. So what do the next 10, 15 years look like for you?
Well, I will continue to beautify the cutaneous landscape of the world, at least the part of the world I am in Silicon Valley and Beverly Hills, and make skin look better, because I love doing that. And I'll continue to learn as much as I can and advance those techniques, And I see that one of my duties is really to share what I've learned. Very few people, if anybody on the face of the earth, has watched a flash of light 20 million times and treated and done 40,000 treatments on people with light. And so it's not just a passion to want to share that and teach people the art of making skin look nicer with this particular light-based technology, but it's also, I see an obligation that I've got. It's important for me to do that, because when you can take somebody who's younger and somebody who's passionate and they want to learn those techniques, and you can share with them things you've taken 20 years to learn, it'll only advance what the rest of us will benefit from. So those things I still see, and as long as I can, I'm going to continue to get out there and be active and live life fully and passionately. And I've been blessed to have a wonderful spouse who just has a lot of energy and vitality like I do, and is such a key to the vitality that I feel every day.
How did you meet your wife?
Well, what would you imagine in Silicon Valley? Electronically. eHarmony. I met her at eHarmony. She was a college professor living 50 miles away from me. We weren't likely to cross paths based on that geographic difference there. We met on eHarmony. So having had other relationships in my life that didn't endure, I was in a position to meet someone again. So we met on eHarmony 5 years ago, and she has been the right one for me.
And what do you hope your legacy will be?
My legacy? Wow. Well, with my peers, my colleagues, I hope to be remembered as the person that introduced a new idea, a new concept that turned out to be extremely useful, and that I was really, really good at making skin look nice. And with my community, I hope to be remembered really as a person that cared deeply about what they did. And with my family, I just hope to be remembered as the father and grandfather that lived life fully and believed that his purpose in life was to enrich my loved ones and enrich my community and enrich as much as I can the world. And part of that's been through teaching the things that I've learned, and part of that is being a role model and an example.
I think we'll end it with that. Thank you so much, Dr. Vitter. You were absolutely remarkable.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Kind of chokes me up a bit, and I appreciate really just your comfortable, open-ended style and letting me go on. I may have rambled a bit, but thank you. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to kind of do a trip down memory lane and put things in my life together. Thank you.